My wife insisted on naming our baby after the name she had chosen with her ex-husband. And when I refused, she called me insecure and left. It all started about a month ago when Dina and I discovered we were pregnant. We had been married for 3 years, both of us at 28, and we were overjoyed with the news. This was a new chapter for us. Dina and I met back in high school, but we didn't get together until much later. We were friends back then, but life had its twists and turns. After high school, she moved away for college, and that's when she met her first husband, Alex. They got married right after graduation when she was about 22, but the marriage only lasted a year before they parted ways. I'll explain more about that later. After high school, Dina and I lost touch, but fate brought us back together. She moved back here right after her divorce, and a mutual friend invited her to a Thanksgiving dinner a few years ago. That was where we saw each other again after all those years. We started talking, and before I knew it, I asked her out. She hesitated and explained that she'd just gone through a rough divorce and wasn't ready to date again. Still, she was open to being friends, and I was fine with that. We exchanged numbers and began chatting more frequently. Over time, we became really close friends, and a year later, it was Dina who asked me out. I said yes. I liked her, and I could see a future with her. After a couple of years of dating, we decided to get married. We've been together for almost 4 years now, and married for 2. When we found out we were expecting, we were thrilled. Our relationship had been smooth sailing so far, happy, dreamy, and filled with love. Like most couples, we had our little disagreements here and there, but we always made up quickly, never letting anything get too heated. There was never anything major to fight about, just minor squabbles. But everything changed when we started discussing baby names. It was only a month into the pregnancy, but Dina was already very eager to talk about names. She was set on the name Philip if it was a boy. It wasn't a name I had any real problem with, especially since we were just tossing around ideas. We could always change our minds later, but things took an unexpected turn. We told our friends about the pregnancy a couple of weeks ago. We had already shared the news with our families, and it was a beautiful celebration with them, but our friends hadn't heard yet. We decided to host a dinner, a special evening to share the news with them. They were all over the moon for us. Then, in the middle of dinner, Dina started talking about baby names. When she mentioned Philip, I noticed a strange reaction from her best friend, Wendy. She looked a bit shocked, but she didn't say anything at the time. I didn't think much of it, but after dinner, Wendy pulled me aside. She said she needed to borrow a lighter for a smoke, so I followed her outside. Dina didn't like smoking, so she told us to go out to the backyard and do whatever we had to do. Up until that point, everything was fine, but once Wendy and I were out of earshot, she dropped a bombshell. She spoke in a low voice, and at first I thought maybe she was going to make a pass at me. My mind raced in confusion. But no, what she said was far worse. Wendy told me something I had no idea about, that Philip was the name Dina had chosen for a baby with her ex-husband, Alex. She began by saying, "You probably already know this," but I didn't know any of it. Every word she spoke was brand new information to me. Wendy explained that Dina and Alex had separated after she lost her baby at 5 months. Alex, grief-stricken, had turned to another woman, and their relationship fell apart. Wendy and Dina had been friends since childhood, so Wendy knew all the details. She also knew that Dina and Alex had wanted to name their baby boy Philip. But after the tragedy, the loss of their baby, the fighting began. Alex's affair came to light, and they divorced shortly after. I had never heard this version of events. It was a secret Dina had kept from me, and I couldn't believe I was just learning the truth. Dina had always told me that she and Alex divorced because they were incompatible and had been fighting a lot. She said they married young, and it was a mistake. That was the version of the story I had heard and believed, but now everything seemed different. It hadn't occurred to me that Dina might have been hiding something so significant. Why would she lie about it? I wouldn't judge her, regardless of what the truth was. I loved her, and I couldn't imagine why she would keep such an important part of her past from me. Wendy explained that she thought I didn't know about the history of the name Philip and felt it was her duty to tell me. I appreciated Wendy's honesty, but I had no idea that I would be hearing so much more than just the story behind a name. I tried to stay calm for the rest of the evening. But once our friends left, I confronted Dina. I told her what Wendy had said. Dina immediately denied it, claiming Wendy was just joking, but I knew better. This wasn't a joke. I kept pressing, insisting that she tell me the truth. Eventually, Dina admitted everything. Yes, she had lost her baby with Alex, and yes, that was the name they had picked out together. The weight of it hit me hard. She told me that her family knew about it, as did a few of her friends. But none of them had shared it with me because Dina had asked them not to. It was too personal, too painful for her to talk about. And so, I had lived in the dark, unaware of a huge chapter of her life. She said she didn't want to bring it up because it was a traumatic experience, one she didn't want to revisit. I understood her pain, but I couldn't drop it. I needed answers. I had to know why she hadn't told me this truth before. Even after we got married, why hide it now? The situation had escalated to something huge, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I should have been kept in the loop. The more I thought about it, the more it didn't sit right with me. She was planning on naming our child a name she had picked out with her cheating ex-husband. It was all just so weird. I couldn't understand why she was so drawn to that name. And it hit me. If she had left everything behind, including Alex and all her old friends, because they were too traumatic for her to relive, then why didn't that apply to the name too? Why would she want to carry that part of the past into our future? The logic didn't add up. I tried talking to her, but she wasn't having it. She just sat there, glued to her phone, scrolling through Instagram. I couldn't take it anymore. I was annoyed. She was avoiding me, and I needed answers. I told her she had to talk to me, that she owed me the truth. Her response? A snap, followed by a yelling tirade. She turned it all around, saying that now that I knew the truth, she owed me absolutely nothing. The words stung. She called me a jealous, insecure narcissist, accusing me of forcing her to relive things she wanted to forget because they were too painful. It cut deeper than I wanted to admit, but I apologized right away. I tried to explain that even if we didn't talk about it at that moment, we couldn't just leave it unresolved forever. I was hurting, feeling betrayed, like she didn't even care about how I felt. She wasn't having it, though. She told me she never wanted to talk about this again. The fight spiraled, escalating quickly as I tried to explain. For almost half an hour, the tension hung heavy in the air. Then she finally gave up, saying she couldn't do this anymore. She started packing her things, leaving. "I'm going to live with my parents for a while," she said. "Maybe it'll help me clear my head. Think about your own behavior," she added coldly, "and call me when you're ready to act like a grown-up instead of a little boy." I was drained, tired of the endless fighting, so I let her go. I didn't stop her. But what I couldn't stand was the way she belittled my feelings, like it was no big deal that she'd been lying to me for years about why she had really divorced Alex. I was furious, hurt, and completely unsure of what to do next. This was the first time a fight had gotten this big, the first time she had left like this. I didn't know how to fix it, so I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself. The silence from her end, no calls, no texts, was deafening. It was worse than the fighting. I would have preferred her to call, even if it was just to yell at me. At least then I'd know where I stood. But as the days dragged on, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I needed to fix things. A week and a half ago, I went to her parents' house, hoping to speak with Dina. When I got there, though, they told me she wasn't with them. They said I had to leave. I was stunned when they told me that I had caused her so much pain. They said she had been devastated when she showed up at their house, and that I had been selfish, forcing her to talk about things she wasn't ready to face, just because I felt bad about it. They also pointed out that I hadn't even tried to contact her in the days after the fight. They said she had been waiting for me to call, but when I hadn't, she decided to go on an impromptu trip to clear her head. That's where she was. I begged them to tell me where she was, but they refused. They told me they couldn't help me, that if I wanted to talk to her, I'd have to call her myself. And then, without warning, they slammed the door in my face. It was humiliating. But all I could think about was where Dina was. So I went back home, sat by the phone, and called her. She answered, but she still wouldn't tell me where she was. I didn't apologize over the phone. I still didn't think I had done anything wrong. But I told her I wanted to talk. Her response? "I'm not ready to talk yet," she said. But then she dropped a bombshell. She said she'd been thinking about our relationship, and now she wasn't sure if she even wanted to be with me anymore. The name Philip? She said it had nothing to do with her ex or her past. It was just a name she liked. She accused me of overthinking things, of being childish and insecure. Wendy, she said, was just stirring things up, making it worse. And the worst part? The fact that I hadn't even bothered to reach out to her after the fight. I tried to explain that I was only concerned because she'd been hiding things from me for years, but she didn't listen. She told me she was going to be out of town for a couple more days and that I needed to think about everything. She said I had a choice to make, either accept her past and her refusal to discuss it, or we could end things for good. If I couldn't let go of my issue with the name Philip, she'd file for divorce. It was up to me. I was stunned. Before I could respond, she ended the call. I didn't know what to think. I was conflicted, torn between wanting a future with her and feeling like she was being unreasonable. The next few days were torture. I couldn't make up my mind, and I knew she was growing more frustrated with me. When she called again, asking if I had made my decision, I told her I hadn't. I still needed time to think. She said that was fine, but the longer I took, the more her faith in me dwindled. That hurt. A lot. Now, here I am, still not knowing what to do. It's a complicated situation. I want to be with her, to build a life together. But everything feels so impossible right now. She's acting in ways I just don't understand, and I'm lost. The weight of her betrayal hung over me like a storm cloud, and I couldn't just brush it aside. She had lied about something so significant, something that had shattered the trust I had in her. How could I forgive that? The silence that followed was deafening, and every time I tried to explain how much her actions hurt me, she dismissed my feelings, made me feel like I was the one overreacting. But I knew deep down, I wasn't. How could I ever talk to friends or family about this? It felt too raw, too personal. This wasn't just another petty argument. This was a breaking point. I was struggling with a decision that seemed impossible, wrestling with whether our relationship could ever come back from this. Then I reached out to her, told her that we needed to talk. Despite everything, I still wanted to try, wanted to believe we could make this work. When she agreed to meet, my heart clenched with hope and frustration. It was a fragile thing, a last thread of possibility. The weight of it all felt heavier when she showed up, tanned from a beach trip, as if the world had kept turning while I spiraled in my thoughts. There she was, looking like she just had fun, while I was stuck in the mess of our broken relationship. I couldn't help but feel resentful. How could she do that? How could she be so carefree when everything around us was falling apart? Her greeting was cold, distant, like we were strangers. The tension in the air thickened as we sat down to talk, and I knew, deep down, that this conversation could change everything. I started pouring out everything I had been bottling up. Every frustration, every moment when she dismissed my emotions like they didn't matter. I told her how hurt I was that she hadn't been honest from the start. If she had just been upfront, we wouldn't be sitting here right now, trying to pick up the pieces. It wasn't easy to say, but I had to. Her response was not what I expected. She didn't argue. She didn't lash out. Instead, she said something that, for a moment, softened the knot in my chest. She understood where I was coming from. She was sorry. But that wasn't the end of it. No, she was upset with me too. Her words stung. She was upset because I hadn't reached out sooner, after everything had gone down. She made it clear how much it hurt that I waited 3 days before making any effort to find her. 3 days. She couldn't understand why it took me so long to act. I tried to defend myself, to explain that I was lost too, trying to process all of it. But she was pregnant, carrying our child, and I should have known better. Her disappointment in me was sharp, like a knife I couldn't pull out. She had been waiting for me to show that I cared, to show that I was there for her. But I hadn't. She said it wasn't right that I'd waited, that she felt like I hadn't put her first. I apologized, but it didn't feel like enough. She had every right to feel that way. But I still couldn't help but feel that she could have reached out to me too. I tried to explain, maybe I didn't handle it the best way, but I was struggling just like her. She told me that I should have been more concerned, that as the one carrying our child, she shouldn't have had to reach out. I told her I was worried, but in the same breath, I was human too. I needed time to come to terms with everything. Then came the moment that stung the most. She told me I hadn't even tried to find her when I found out she wasn't at her parents' house. She was out on her own, and anything could have happened. The guilt hit me like a wave, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she had wanted the space. She had left to get away from everything, to find some clarity. So I respected that. I didn't want to make it worse by showing up unannounced. I trusted her to take care of herself, but that wasn't enough. She told me that I had let her down in her most vulnerable moment. That was why she had said she didn't want to be with me anymore. I tried, again and again, to explain myself, to make her understand that I was worried, that I cared. But she wasn't hearing me. She told me she needed more time to think, to sort through everything. And just like that, she was gone again. We haven't spoken since. The silence between us is deafening. I feel lost, unsure of what comes next. The idea of divorce looms over me, and yet it feels like the only option left. But I can't shake the feeling that somehow, despite everything, I wanted to make it work. It seems to me that no matter how much I try, she just isn't willing to move from her position. It's as if she's determined to paint me as the villain, simply for expressing my feelings and showing emotion. But maybe that's what she wants. She's made it clear that my emotions don't matter, at least not to her. Then, just a few hours ago, I found out something truly horrible. Maybe I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. I had been talking to Wendy, hoping she could shed some light on what was going on between Dena and me. She knew Dena better than anyone else. And frankly, I was desperate for some help. Wendy and I hadn't spoken since that disastrous day at the party, and I hadn't told anyone about the ongoing issues between Dena and me. But today, I couldn't stop my mind from racing. Everything felt like too much to handle on my own. So I reached out to Wendy. I'm honestly relieved I did because I'm not sure how I would have discovered Dena's betrayal otherwise. Yes, you heard that right. She's been cheating on me. I don't know for how long. I don't know why. All I know is that she's back with Alex now. I never expected it. Wendy told me something that hit me like a ton of bricks. She said Dena had been waiting for me to contact her. It was strange because Wendy and I weren't exactly close, and we never really spoke on the phone. Yet, as soon as I called, Wendy immediately started talking, almost like she'd been holding on to this for a while. She confessed that she had been debating whether or not to reach out to me, but didn't want to betray her best friend, Dena, any further. She had already shared enough, like the true reason behind Dena's first divorce, and now this. So, she waited for me to come to her. And then came the bombshell. Wendy sent me a photo Dena had posted on her Instagram story a few days ago. I hadn't been able to see it because Dena had probably changed the privacy settings to block me. The picture seemed innocent at first. A shot of Dena lounging on the beach in a bikini, sunglasses perched on her nose. Nothing about it stood out, nothing to make me suspicious. But then Wendy pointed out something. An arm. Another person had been lying on the next chair, and they had been cropped out of the photo. But their arm was still visible. It was a man's arm. At first I thought it was nothing, just an odd coincidence. But then Wendy zoomed in, and we both saw the tattoo. It wasn't just any tattoo. It was a motorcycle design, identical to the one Alex had. Wendy recognized it immediately. She tried to brush it off, saying it might not be the same tattoo. Maybe it wasn't as clear as we thought. But I could see it. I could see the motorcycle in the tattoo, clear as day, and I knew it wasn't a coincidence. When Wendy told me that Dena had replied with a simple motorcycle emoji when asked if the guy was Alex, I felt my stomach drop. It was classic Dena, acting smug about everything. I already knew the truth, even without the confirmation. She had been cheating on me. I couldn't take it anymore. After that phone call with Wendy, I reached out to my dad and asked him to help me find a divorce lawyer. I needed out. I texted Dena and asked about the picture, but of course she hasn't responded. It doesn't matter anymore. I already know the truth. It's been eating at me for days, and now I finally have an answer. The way she'd been acting, the fights, it all makes sense now. I can't keep doing this. I deserve better. I'm ready to move on. 2 months later, after filing for divorce, the drama continued. Dena finally admitted to everything. She confessed that she'd been seeing Alex behind my back for almost a year. It started when he reached out during a work conference. They met up one last time, she said, for closure. But that closure turned into an affair. He quit his job, moved here permanently, all for her. She had tried to find the courage to tell me, but she couldn't. Her apology meant nothing. Not after everything that had happened. And then, there's the baby. We're still waiting to find out if it's mine. The thought of it haunts me. If it is mine, I've made up my mind. I want full custody. If it's not mine, I'll let them keep it. Either way, I've started seeing a therapist to help me process all this. It's tough, but I'm getting through it one day at a time. A month ago, the baby was born. Turns out, the baby is mine. And with that, I have full custody. The divorce is final. I kept everything that was mine. No alimony, nothing for Dena. She got nothing, just like she deserved. It's been a relief, honestly. Things are looking up. It's easier now, without the constant drama. I'm finally starting to get my life back on track. Thank you to everyone who reached out to check on me. Your support means more than you know.